Hey everyone, welcome to Logan's Mosh Pit. Glad to have you here. Do me a favor and please subscribe if you haven't already. Today we're going to do another episode of the Memory Lane series. In this series, we're going to take a look back at some interesting articles and interviews from old guitar magazines. My dad has been collecting guitar magazines for about 30 years now. He saved a bunch of them. He was kind enough to let me borrow some. So the one we're going to look at today is the April 2001 edition of Guitar Player magazine. Here's the cover. I'm going to read you an article titled The Wonder Years, 32 Players Who Defined the Sound of 80s Guitar. This article was made possible by the entire staff at Guitar Player magazine. Teamwork makes the dream work. I chopped the list down from 32 to 5 guitar aficionados for time's sake. I can't rank them because they're neck and neck. If I don't mention any of your favorite guitar players, please don't friend me. So here are 5 gallant guitar gods that picked up serious steam in the 80s. Feel free to expand the list via the comments section. First, Billy Gibbons. ZZ Top was already a huge concert act when the advent of MTV in the early 80s gave the little old band from Texas an opportunity to boogie its way to unprecedented heights. Video images of the bearded Mysteriosos with their custom coup accompanied hit after hit from the 1983 release Eliminator, and behind it all was Top's enigmatic guitarist Billy Gibbons. The trademark pick harmonics, stubby solos, and grinding riffs that fueled Eliminator in the subsequent Afterburner were old tricks for Gibbons, but his streamlined approach to playing over-sequenced grooves made it easy to forget that blues was still the magma at ZZ's core. As Gibbons explained to GP in 1986, try as we might to spice up our sound with synthesizers and this and that, it basically comes down to a few moments of bluesiness that we want to hold on to. That's where we came from, and that's pretty much where we'd like to keep stabbing at. It's impossible to detail the exact gear that Gibbons used during this period, or any other for that matter, as his tales of combining for the direct signal from a modified Scholes Rockman with that of a centrally mic'd amp cabin constructed from Marshall, Fender, and Legend amps are probably as tall as a Texas toadstool. Of course, none of that matters in the context of how Gibbons pushed the guitar envelope at a time when technology threatened to relegate the lowly six-string to the back porch. Rad Tracks, Dipping Low in the Lap of Luxury, Planet of Women, Sleeping Bag, Velcro Fly, and Under Pressure. 80s Gear, Dean Z, Tom Holmes Customs, Strings and Things St. Blues, Strat Style Guitar, Roland GR 700 Synth, Fairlight Digital Workstation, Fender and Marshall Amps, Scholes Rockman, Roland Dimension D, and Ibanez Rack Effects. The Now, ZZ Top released their 14th album, XXX, in 1999. Next we have George Lynch. One of the original hotshot LA metal players, Dokken guitarist George Lynch had chops to burn but always kept them in check, with a tasty vibrato and keen sense of melody. When Randy Rhoads left his guitar teaching job for the Ozzy Osbourne gig, he insisted Lynch fill his shoes and take over his students. Not a bad referral. The majority of Lynch's Aquanet Glaze Fury can be found in his supercharged solos. I think a typical George Lynch solo should have melody and build to a climax, he told GP in 1986. Speed is also important. People may get down on that, but it's impressive and it gives the solo energy. Aside from his stellar lead work, Lynch's wicked tritone lace riffing absolutely defined the hard rock hairband sound for the next several years. Rad Tracks, It's Not Love, Lightning Strikes, Mr. Scary, and Paris is Burning. 80s Gear, Barrios custom guitars including Charvel, ESP, and Kramer solid bodies, Area Acoustic, vintage Marshall heads and cabs, and Randall amplifiers. The Now, Lynch is currently working on an album with his band Lynch Mob. Next, Trevor Robin. Seminole prog rock band Yes has apparently seen the rising and setting of its sun in the 1970s, with 9 albums and several hits, including Roundabout, Long Distance Runaround, and Yours Is No Disgrace. Then, just as 1983 was winding up, South African guitarist/vocalist/producer Trevor Robin brought his cachet of songs to founding members Chris Squire on bass and John Anderson on vocals, and resurrected Yes with the smash 90125, an album rife with slick production, radio-friendly hooks, and tactile layered guitars. Although Rabin's harmonized leads are arguably the most memorable color of his tonal spectrum, his inventive use of modern gear proffered a wealth of tones from super compressed clean to crunchy to sweetly sustaining. Even his acoustic guitar tones were amazingly distinctive. In short, Rabin's command of tonal shades proved him to be both a brilliant texturalist and a fiery lead player. Rad tracks: Changes, Hearts, Owner of a Lonely Heart with Yes, I'm sure you've heard that song, Can't Look Away, and Etoile Noir solo. 80s gear: 62 Fender Stratocaster with Seymour Duncan stacked humbuckers and Schaller tuners, 2 Ernie Ball volume pedals, one for regular volume, one for echo volume, and various MXR pedals, including a pitch transposer, a Dynacomp, a 10-band graphic EQ, an analog delay, a distortion plus, a flanger, and an envelope filter, MXR 15-band EQ and digital reverb rack units, and Roland SRE 555 chorus/echo. The majority of Rabin's time is now spent on soundtrack work. The numerous films he has worked on includes Deep Blue Sea, Gone in 60 Seconds, Enemy of the State, Armageddon, and Con Air. Next, Joe Satriani. In the early 80s, Joe Satriani was a guitar teacher in Berkeley, California, with a couple of band projects and some sessions under his belt. By 1987, he was on the cover of every guitar magazine in the world, thanks to Surfing with the Alien. With dazzling technique, high-energy tunes, and extreme guitar tones, Satch proved that all the rumors of his greatness, some of which were started by his former student Steve Vai, were true. And he did something that very few heroes have done: sell records. Surfing was a smash hit with guitarists and non-guitarists alike, and Satriani would enjoy further success with his subsequent releases and tours. He was also picked by Mick Jagger to go on the road and cover parts originally played by Keith Richards and Jeff Beck. Looking back on his debut decade, Satch says, making the transition from giving lessons in the back of a store to being the Surfing with the Alien guy and Mick's lead guitarist was a completely mind and life-altering experience. Rad tracks: Circles, Hordes of Locusts, Ice 9, Mystical Potato Head Groove Thing, and Satch Boogie. 80s gear: homemade Strat-style guitars, Ibanez solid bodies, 100-watt Marshall amps, Scholes Rockman, Echoplexes, and Boss CE1 chorus. But now, Satch released Engines of Creation in 2000, and he was last featured in GP in May of 2000. Finally, we'll end with Stevie Ray Vaughan. At a time when drum machines ruled and it was hipper to own a Roland G707 synth guitar than a 62 Strat, Stevie Ray Vaughan pushed bare-knuckle blues back onto the airwaves. Ironically, most listeners first heard Vaughan as a sideman on David Bowie's club-oriented Let's Dance. In '83, pop radio was dominated by new wave and synth bands, so Vaughan's stinging Strat tones and Albert King-inspired bends in China Girl and Let's Dance sounded downright revolutionary. That same year, Vaughan's bluesy debut, Texas Flood, hit the top 40 and established the 29-year-old as a bona fide guitar hero. For the first time in more than a decade, it was cool to play blues. For the next 7 years, Vaughan never strayed from his roots, recording taut, guitar-driven R&B with his Lone Star Confederates' Double Trouble. Whether reinterpreting Hendrix and Howlin' Wolf, or pounding out an original R&B shuffle, Vaughan infused each note with palpable tension. You can witness his blend of feral energy and superb technique in Live at the El Macombo, a video shot in a sweaty Toronto nightclub in '83. Because of its unwavering honesty, Vaughan's music remains as popular as ever. In almost every U.S. city, at least one SRV wannabe, complete with a black gancho hat and battered Strat, labors in vain to be the next Stevie Ray. Rad Tracks. Lenny, Love Struck Baby, Pride and Joy, Texas Flood, Voodoo Child, Slight Return. 80s Gear, 59 Sunburst Fender Strat, a pair of sequentially serial numbered 63 Fender Fireburb 1x15 combos, Fender Vibratone, and Ibanez TS9 Tube Screamer. And now, on August 27, 1990, Vaughan sadly died in a helicopter crash following a concert in Wisconsin. May he rest in peace. That does it for today's video, guys. I hope you enjoyed. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe if you haven't already. I really appreciate the support. I'll see you next time. Until then, rock on.